Welcome back to the Day One Podcast. I'm Adam Daly.
And I'm Brett Nord.
And we're excited to be back for another episode, episode 12.
Yes.
And we're going to be talking all about version 3 today with founder and owner, CEO, Paul Mayne. Welcome back.
Guys. Secret Keeper.
The Secret Keeper. Oh, yeah. That was such a cool article that Apple did on Paul and about Day One, and it was really neat. Maybe we'll have a little time to get into that, but...
Actually, let's test it. Can you tell me a secret? Nope, he's keeping them. Nope.
Keeping it in the vault.
It's still there.
That's important.
Will not tell.
Yeah. We're not going to talk a ton about roadmap today because we want to talk all about version 3 with Paul later on. Should we get into our Day One discussions?
Go to it. Yes.
You want to tell us a little bit about Carl?
Yes, Carl Edward is awesome. You're going to love him, from Germany. And he has some, I thought, really unique ideas, ways he's used Day One. So we'll talk about that as we play him.
Cool. We'll have him introduce himself here.
My name is Karl Eduard from Hamburg, Germany. So I would say I'm a kind of power user of your app, even though I'm maybe slightly over the average age of your...
Oh, I don't know.
And I'm a big fan of your app.
Awesome.
Aww.
You know, it's been kind of cool. My 2 years being here with Day One, just getting to know people all over the world and how the app has affected them in different ways.
Sure.
And so this is exciting to hear from Carl from Germany.
Yes.
And we'll get into that. So next clip here, he's going to talk about handwriting. Great help, I think, looking through his entries. Is that right?
Yes, let's play it and we'll talk about it.
If I write about a day or about something which happens in a book, I will never find it myself.
Yes.
And my children or my wife, they can't even read it because sometimes you just quickly write, and it's so to me Day One is a great help.
Awesome.
Great tips there. I know I couldn't, my kids won't be able to read my handwriting if I did a handwritten journal. So
Paul, and that's kind of one of the reasons you wanted to do Day One was get more into being able to type out journals as opposed to writing them, right?
Yeah, well, it's always with you in your pocket. Yeah,
you don't have to worry about a bunch of superfluous tools,
right?
But yeah, always with you. I like that.
Yes.
So
as well as the search, he talked about search, which I think is great too. To quickly find things, which is hard to do in a written journal.
It becomes more immediately practical.
Yes.
Where the written one is about preserving history, not so much about reflecting back on it,
recalling. That's right.
So now he talks about starting with a headline.
Mm-hmm.
The other thing which I do is, in the morning when I get up, I always create one headline of today, because then I know I've done my entry. That headline I mostly use newspaper or the weather report just to put it in. Then during the day, when I put in more text stuff, I think about this headline and I might change it, because if it just says sunshine in Hamburg, it is not so meaningful. I then will say probably we have gone to the seaside and we had a swim, so I might change that.
I like that. And we talked a little bit about that last week when we talked about defining what journaling means for you, where it can be one line, it can be just a paragraph. You don't have to feel like you need to write a novel for every single entry.
That's right. It seems like you'd have a lot of depressing headlines if you took them from the news.
But sunshine in Hamburg, that's a great headline.
Yes,
I like
love
that
weather
a lot.
In fact, we've talked about the app Calm.
Oh, yes, Calm.
They actually have a sleep story that's the shipping report in the UK.
Okay.
So weather related, so it puts people to sleep. So maybe your entries, if they talk about weather, put the reader to sleep.
I like the rain one. That's always my favorite.
Yes.
The headline thing is a really interesting use case that we do support in some way right now with the activity feed from the iOS widgets. So it'll show like your recent 3 visits on the activity feed, and you just tap on that check and it will put that title into an entry.
Yes.
Without doing, like, it just creates an entry placeholder with that as a title, and then when you go back into your journal, it's definitely, for me, a prompt to like expand upon it.
Awesome. Yeah, and that's easily accessible in the widgets, so check that out. There's actually a help article about all of the widgets that we have and how you can
Yes.
use those. So thanks, Paul.
Good stuff.
Using receipts and entries. I didn't understand this one at first, so let's...
you will.
Also, what I do is I take pictures of documents. So let's say when I have been in New York, maybe I have a restaurant receipt of a steakhouse where I've been with my wife, Evelyn.
Sure.
And that amounted to, I don't know, $150.
Yes.
If I still have something like that, I put it into the app. Because that gives me remembers me of some things in the past. And to me, it's just great.
That must have been a good steak. Now I'm hungry for steak.
$75.
Can we talk about documents a little bit? I mean, is that something that you do in your journal entries? Do you capture stuff like that?
Not.
Okay.
It is not. I know our friend Paul, though, is going to talk about his concert tickets.
Oh, yeah.
which is
Actually, I started
awesome.
doing that because of Paul.
Did you?
Yeah, the ticket thing is huge for me now. Now I don't have a bunch of little scrappy pieces of paper hanging around my house.
Sure.
I take a picture of it, record the location, time, who I
Yes.
was with, and then I've got a cool journal of all of the events that I went to.
That's awesome.
Yeah, I like the ticket stub case because I can go back. I have so many from my life that I can go back and kind of recreate a timeline of my own history.
Yes.
That's so cool.
And he's been to some cool concerts. I've seen him in the test journals. They're awesome.
I like the receipt thing. I've done that myself occasionally. Like if there's something that I ate that I just didn't want to type out or write out the meal that we just had. Specifically, like at a sushi dinner, like if there are certain rolls that were really good or something, I want to capture that. I've also used the Microsoft, I think it's Microsoft app, Seeing AI,
Yes.
Oh, yeah.
where you can it transcribes the text to
The image to text.
the image to text, right
Yeah.
away, and then you just use the share extension to send it to day one.
Nice. I actually,
great
I
idea.
do that sushi roll one too. I type out, as I'm ordering, or as I'm looking through the menu, I type out a list of the sushi rolls because there are that many, I promise you. I love me some sushi. But then I have a whole list of rolls, and then I can put like any, bold text or whatever on ones that stood out to me that I really enjoyed, and then next time when I go back, I know which
Great
rolls to
idea.
look for. So
I'm usually too hungry when the sushi arrives. It's gone. Like, oh, I should have.
that's it.
taken a
Should have remembered
picture.
that.
Yeah. But good idea to use receipts.
I stopped taking pictures of the food though, because that just felt like an Instagram blog. I mean, I'm like, I don't really need to know this, but anyway.
Picture of the empty plate.
There you go. I
when
could do
you're done.
that.
Yeah.
This was destroyed
it.
by me.
Yeah.
Carl's favorite feature and a tip.
Yes.
In this next one.
What I like is the new filtering.
Yes.
It's a lot. It's helpful. I like the full text search. Fantastic. That is also something which reminded me later on that I always should put in full name of the person I met, because if I meet Peter many times, it might be that is 15 different Peters. So then I
great
can't
point.
sort it. So
Yes.
I will put in. Today I had a talk with Brett Nerd. Full name, not because I'm very German and very, but the way if I do that, I can find the person so much easier.
I like that a lot.
Yes. And I like the way he said my name.
Brett Nord. That was.
I
very
heard Brett
German.
Nerd.
Ooh, ouch. Oh, flashbacks to junior high
No.
when Happy Days and the Fonz. Like, nerd. Oh, man.
Oh no.
Yeah.
Sorry,
okay.
Brett.
I'll recover.
I have to say that I've commented a few times that Brett is the silver fox of day one. If James Bond were American,
Oh,
it would
gosh.
be Brett Nord.
No.
Absolutely.
No one would see that movie or read the book.
008.
Ooh.
Nord. Brett Nord.
Double odd.
It works
More like
too. It
double odd.
flows.
Yeah.
Speaking of tags, I've gone back and forth on this. Do I like them? Do I not? I haven't used them extensively, but we've had requests for people wanting to use people tags. What does that even mean? Or am I understand? Maybe my understanding is just limited on that.
Yeah, I think it's building on what our tags are right now to have more data associated with the tag, so you could have like an email address or
Oh, okay.
maybe some contact information. that's how I interpret it. Maybe attach a photo of the person,
Oh, yeah.
similar to like a contact card, but it's unique to the journal. And maybe it connects to your contacts and
Oh, that would
automatically links to your contact card. I think that's possible.
Yes.
Yeah, that'd be cool. And then have like a filter for it or something like that. Maybe drill down. That'd be cool. Lastly, we've got one more clip here from Carl. And he talks about On This Day, my favorite feature. So
I think the problem is that you really get the benefit of doing diaries with day one is after a year where you have recoming text messages or pictures. I would recommend everybody really to use their photo library via Apple iCloud, which allows you to automatically or half automatically create a diary of pictures of the past. And if you have children or if you have traveled, it is so nice if you can say, oh, we have been in Venice or we have been in wherever. So I think photos is a very easy way of getting into diaries.
awesome.
Yeah.
So he talks about On This Day and being able to relive past entries, but then also going back and retroactively journaling by accessing photos. And what's great is if those photos have metadata, that brings it into the app with location and date and time, so it automatically sorts it where you want it. So
Yeah. Although there's sometimes that downside of seeing a picture of you a few years ago. Dang it, I've aged since that picture.
Should have took more photos back then.
That's right. Yeah.
why so much now? All right,
Yeah.
meat and potatoes,
Let's do it. Let's get to it.
or if you're vegetarian, just potatoes and a
Tofu.
soy burger, or a portobello mushroom. I hear those are delicious.
And they're as expensive as Carl's steak dinner.
delicious
too.
steak. So let's get into it. We're gonna almost turn the time over to Paul here and talk
Yes.
about version 3. Came out this week. It's been a little while coming, and we're super excited about it. There's a lot of cool things that are introduced in version 3, and I'll just give you an overview. You've likely already seen those if you've updated already, or you've seen our blog post or some of the new help guides that are out there. But the big ones are audio recording is finally here. Dark mode for iOS is now available, and our brand new editor, which are all just fantastic features. I'm not good at design, but I love the aesthetic of day one. So, Paul, do you want to kind of tell us how we got here? What brought us to V3?
Sure. Well, audio was the big feature that we had been pushing forward on. And as we had developed audio recording in the app, we realized that there was just the experience of using it wasn't up to our standards due to the way that Day One was currently working, which was our editor at the time, has always been, there's this plain text entry editor view, and then which we called edit mode, and then read mode, which is a HTML rendered web view. And we did our best to align the two. So when you would, after you were finished writing your entry, you tap done, and then it would switch to the web view. We would line everything up and match it as close as we could. And in most cases, that served us really well, and we benefited from all the advantages of HTML, which are natively renders Markdown, and you can embed
YouTube
JavaScript
links.
things,
Yeah.
And that there were a lot of advantages we saw from that, but there were some definite disadvantages in the user experience, and I think it came to the surface very clearly with our initial audio implementation, and that we had this audio player in the edit view, but then when you switch to read view, we had this HTML audio playback and could not get them to line up really well.
Yeah.
And an example of a downside of that solution was writing out a longer form entry, multiple pages long. If you're going back and reading it and you see like a typo or something you want to edit down at the bottom, you could tap into the entry to edit, and it was hard to line up the scroll position to like jump in right to that spot.
Yeah.
So you would the cursor would either end up at usually I think it would end up at the very bottom of the entry. You again have to seek and find where you were, where that point was. So we realized this limitation years ago and had always been exploring new and better ways to improve the editor. And we've explored with open source libraries and other existing technologies to improve our editor, whether it's for markdown, highlighting, or rendering things inside of a native text view the way that HTML and a web view would. And nothing existing was good enough or really worked really well. And so as I talked about it with the team, with BJ several times, I'm like, let's just start simple and build something. And he would say, this is not an easy task. Like, this is years of work to like
Speaking
get
of the
something.
editor itself.
Yeah, to rebuild the editor to do what we want. Which he would say about everything, you know? So I'm like, well, maybe can we do it even simpler? Like, where can we just like get the very basics? And we could never really kick it off because it was such a large task. It was hard to like kick off as just like a new feature or something we'd work on alongside our current roadmap. So the way that we were finally able to jump into it was around this idea of a separate app being a text editor, a notes app. Josh and I started that off around 2 years ago. And, you know, over the course of probably 3 or 4 months, we got an initial version of this text editor as a really basic Mac app prototype. Well, not a prototype, a working prototype that rendered Markdown. So basic Markdown headers, bold, italic. It would auto-convert those things into a rich text view. And, you know, that's been done before, but it was done in a way that would support our platform moving forward. And we just kept iterating on that. And Josh stayed focused on it for well over a year. And it wasn't until, I think we were about 1.5 years into it and still just iterating on it and trying, and as a side project for Josh and myself. And then once we realized this issue with audio recording, the right solution was, let's just take this editor and put it into day one and unify the views and just have one view. So the audio recorder, whether you're in edit mode or read mode, it's just going to be there in the same place. Nothing's refreshing or changing. It's just a much better experience overall.
Similar to like how notes would perform.
Yeah.
Where you've got just that one unified look there.
Right.
So
yeah, no HTML. So the downside there is there's a lot of things that we've supported all along with HTML that people assume will continue to work that will no longer work. So we realized, you know, that there's still several more months to get this thing tested and refined and fully compatible with our existing content.
Yeah.
And right away we realized, you know, there are some other advantages to having this new editor. One of them being dark mode is going to be doable. And because if we had to do dark mode, well, actually we did go down that path of dark mode with our current, our previous dual entry view. And again, it was just like making the HTML match exactly like the view. It just didn't look great. Like, our headers are always pretty close. It's the same font, but it renders differently in a web view than it does in a native view.
It's not as simple as just inversing colors.
No. So yeah, dark mode made sense because we could now do it in an elegant way. And so as we got into audio, got that working well.
Well, and I sorry, I don't mean to interrupt you, but I just wanted to plug Josh Orr for a second because we haven't had him on the show or interviewed him, but he has a large part in the new editor and a lot of the things that we do here. So
thanks, Josh.
Shout out to Josh for his work.
Yeah. good stuff. That's so some of the things that we realized we had to continue supporting, with the video embeds, supporting YouTube, or you can just paste in a YouTube URL and it will auto expand into a video embed, and anything that relied on more advanced Markdown. So we have support for auto converting Markdown for the very basics: headers, bold, italic, lists. Those are the most common things, and you'd probably know better than me. Like, we have some users that love to see the Markdown syntax and want us to do more there, but then there are others that are like, I hate all that stuff, like all my bold being surrounded by asterisks. Like, just show me the bold. And so over the years, as we've grown, and I think our audience has become less technical users, they just want it to be a WYSIWYG editor. What you see is what you get.
Yeah. It certainly has broadened. I mean, just as you know, since we went to the freemium model, where more people, I think, are downloading the app, even in the free version, there is a broader audience where you go from, basic users as far as their technical ability to more advanced people that, love Markdown and technical writing and stuff like that. So it certainly has broadened for sure.
But we want to continue to appeal to our power users and those that have invested so much time into putting their content into day one, and they expect it to continue to be accessible and visible in the way they had it.
Yeah.
So, we solved that problem, but it was like 80% of the work, and probably 20% of our users are benefiting from it, or less. Maybe like 5% of our users are like doing code blocks and more advanced syntax, multi-markdown type stuff.
Yeah.
So we were able to retain support for everything except for, I think, Markdown footnotes.
Footnotes, yeah, that was a big one.
And with footnotes, like there are certain things that we just inherently supported because of our Markdown renderer.
Right.
They supported them, but we didn't officially say, "Oh, this is a suggested feature or a feature of day one."
Right.
It just happened to work, so we were okay, kind of dropping support for that. But it was a monumental effort to create the solution we came up with, which was these dynamic code blocks. So anything that was detected as advanced Markdown, like a Markdown table, will automatically get wrapped into a code block and displayed as a web view within the native editor.
Yes.
And
you can toggle that on and off.
And now you can toggle it, where before you had to toggle the entire entry and you'd lose your scrolling position. Now, right embedded within the entry, you can toggle that piece of content and make edits and preview it, which is something new that I'd never seen before. So that was pretty fun solution to come up with.
Yeah, good stuff. What else? Audio is a huge one. And we've got support for up to 30 minutes of straight audio that you can record, and I believe up to 10 audio clips in a single entry. Is that correct?
Yeah, at least.
At least. You'll have to correct me if I'm wrong. But so up to 30 minutes of straight audio, and then we also offer transcription for 1-minute clips. And that uses Apple's transcription services, and it does a pretty good job. We actually had some good reports from users saying that they really liked how it worked. So that's awesome.
Yeah, audio turned out really well. It's been a major undertaking, and I think looking at it from the perspective of somebody new, just checking out the audio feature, it seems really simple and obvious, which is as we would like it to be. But it was actually pretty. There was a lot of thought that went into getting it to that point, and particularly around like how people are going to use it. Like it's day one has always been pretty open to a wide variety of use cases, and audio. Some people just want like background environmental sounds, or they want to just record the voice of their children, or Well, others want to use it for dictating, and in addition to getting the transcribed text, they want to preserve their voice
Right.
talking. And, solving all of those with one solution is pretty difficult, especially if you're not giving an option to like record this type or this type. Just narrow it down to just hit record. Another thing that we got into was the transcription and transcription services, and there's several good services available. They're all mostly paid services,
right.
and then there's concerns around security and just uploading video audio files and getting those transcribed, and every little detail of that comes down to like the user experience, and just like having to wait for things to come back. And as we got into it and tried different services, we realized the best solution for us right now was relying on the Apple transcription service, which is very secure and quick, and it's probably not the best transcription that comes back out of the ones that we tested, but it's pretty good.
Yeah.
And it's similar to what you get when you're using Siri dictation, but there's some differences in that you don't get cut off. Like you're not distracted by, oh, how is it interpreting what I'm saying now or whatnot. It's just like you naturally just start talking, you get 1 minute, it cuts off, and then you see the transcription. And in our initial tests, and that suited most of the cases there.
Yeah, no, I think it's an amazing start, and also affordable one. As you mentioned, there are transcription services that are paid, and that's something that we have to consider. Do we shoulder that as as part of our service, or do we make more options available later? That's something that we have to consider doing in the development. So
yeah,
it's as I've come to understand just the back end of software and all the different things that goes into even a single smaller feature. Yes. There's a lot of work behind that maybe we don't always realize, that it's not just going in and changing a setting in our developer tools. There's a lot of code that's got to be written, and things that are managed, and then also all the considerations that have to be taken into like security. We want those who are using our encryption features to still have that ability even with audio, and so that's something that we have to consider as well. So a lot of back-end stuff that we don't always see.
Yeah.
There's been great feedback already on the Facebook community about audio polls on how are you now using audio. I think one user kind of accidentally came across the force or the hard press to see the option to toggle between the dictation versus recording.
So there's a couple of hidden things. There's a couple of long presses on different items, right? So now the big plus button, or not the big plus, the plus button at the bottom of your screen on the timeline, if you long press that, you can access the activity feed in addition to getting to it in the journal drawer. And then also on the audio icon, long press to choose a one-time option for the transcribed or the 30-minute full non-transcribed version. So a couple of shortcuts there for you.
And if you press A, B, up, down, that's different.
Select start.
Sorry. Old school.
That is old school, my friends.
It's the best school there is.
Super
Metroid,
Nintendo.
right?
Yeah.
Yeah, so I think we came up with that toggle option towards the end of the release, and the more I use it, and I think we'll get some more feedback on that as it rolls out to everybody. I'm thinking about having an option like where it's not sort of hidden behind a long press. It's like which type of recording. Something I'm considering.
Cool.
Yeah.
Now, so we've talked about, I kind of wanted to address some of the obstacles that we face, and you mentioned most of those already, so I don't think we need to drill down in that. It's just there were a lot of different considerations to make in how these features related to each other, audio, dark mode, the new editor, and all of that, that I think that's why it was such a large undertaking, and with the group that we have is small. You've heard from all of our engineers, practically, minus Josh. That's our team. So, we're trying to get all of that stuff done, and I'm really proud of the people that work here. All of them did a great job.
Yes.
There's so many little details that go into creating, like writing an editor. It's like we have to consider what's going to happen on every key press in every cursor position.
Wow.
You know, maybe in some cases you're pressing down shift or control, do a backwards or a reverse backspace and things like that. It's like, you know, where do you backspace the list into the previous line or to the blank line above it? We went deep on a lot of these cases just to retain the formatting and the spacing and everything to just have a beautifully rendered entry without having to think about it. It just feels natural as you're writing and to do the right thing. But it's not built in like that. Like you really have to, the way that we did it to support rich text and markdown, you know, the easy way is just like, well, we're just going to use the built-in rich text editor. And that is a great start because that gives you a lot of these things for free. But where we built this custom, we had to recreate a lot of those, and you know, you would assume some of these things are just automatic. It's not. It's like we hundreds and hundreds of detailed discussions and issues created for what happens when the cursor's in this one position. And
wow. That's what keeps Paul up at night.
Yeah.
Hundreds and hundreds. He doesn't count sheep, he counts problems. Like, oh, there's one less problem I can deal with.
There are some minor things that I think are a huge step for us that I just want to mention real quick. One, I love the new checklists, how they do a strike through when you complete them. And also in your timeline view, you can see how many of your checklists are completed. I love that.
Yeah.
You can still use Markdown for the most part in our editor. If you just type out hashtags for a header or the asterisk for the bold, they automatically convert into what you want to see. And then there was one other, auto continuation of numbered lists. I use a lot of numbered lists, and previously when you would hit return on a numbered list, you'd have to type out the number again. Now they auto continue.
Nice touch.
C'est magnifique.
Yeah, the checklist is another great advantage of moving, you know, away from our previous solution where it, you know, you would just see the markdown checklist. You couldn't check it off in edit mode. You know, another thing related to the cursor position and things is that I don't think would rarely be noticed, but is different from other editors that I've seen, is that in between a header and some body text, there's a blank line there. And, you know, it's like, do we allow the cursor to be there or not? If you push up from the line below a header, should it go into the header? Or because if it goes into the header, now I'm typing on the header line.
Right.
But if I wanted to insert some text between a header and some text below it, naturally I'd want to put the cursor right there. Other text editors, well, you have to put it at the end of the header line and hit return, or make a new blank line from the line below and then push up. Well, I didn't like that. Like, I wanted to be able to put the cursor anywhere, but I also didn't want like a full cursor line there. So we came up with this idea of like, we're going to show all of the lines, because in valid markdown there is a line there.
Right.
But we're going to compress that to a short cursor line. So you can see your cursor's on that line. You can drag a photo or paste text into it because it's intuitive. It's like you can see the cursor's there. And it's easier because you don't have to like go in there and figure out how to insert a blank line right there.
Yeah.
So yeah, that's just like something that most people would never notice, but it's in using it regularly, you would realize some of these benefits. Or at least you wouldn't run into the annoyance of like, how do I get my cursor right there?
Yeah.
Right.
Man, I work here and I just realized that for now. I was like, okay, yeah, that makes sense. That's how I've been using it.
Yeah.
Don't tell my boss that, okay?
I won't.
Shh.
Well, I know that
I
there's
just
been
muted
some
his mic
discussion
just
about
like
what's
once.
with these short cursors. Like, why are we dealing? Because then, you know, introducing that introduced some other issues. Like, when you, through formatting, you could end up with two short cursors together in some cases. So we had to like figure out how to combine those into one full-size line, and it just, you know, just an example of like the stuff that we've been dealing with. And we got it to a great point that we were comfortable releasing it, getting it out to the public, which I think we'll learn a lot from that. You know, we've been using it internally for a year, I think, in some manner. But it's never finished. Like, we will continue iterating and improving on this. This is the first version of it.
Cool. So some people might have noticed that the Mac update is not 3.0, is not version 3. Can you tell us a little bit about that?
Yeah. So the editor is in version 2.8 of Mac. The reason we're not calling it version 3 is because I don't think it really warranted it without dark mode and without audio recording built in. It can play back the audio, and the editor works it's the same editor that's in iOS. There's some subtle differences because of the different platforms. Like, it's not fully compatible on the back end of the code. Ultimately, we will unify the two views exactly, but for now there's some nuances with the way images and rule lines are on Mac, but it should feel the same as a user. So it's a compatibility update, really, just to support what we've done on iOS with version 3, and the next version of Mac will have support for Mojave coming up with native dark mode.
Yes,
that'll be awesome. Maybe audio recording in what we'll probably call 2.9. But we are moving forward on a UI update for Mac that will be version 3, likely come 2 to 3 months from now.
Cool.
Yeah.
Awesome. There you go. There's the roadmap. We just attacked it a little bit later on.
Hey, I wanted to ask with the editor, and I know there's no such thing as truly future proofing, but do you think this editor is now in place for a while? Now you got the foundation of a new structure?
Yes, this is the future of day one, and other ideas will be built upon this.
Great, cool.
So it's an exciting advancement that I'm looking forward to building on. You asking me that just made me think of a bunch of other things we need to work on with the editor.
We got the whiteboard.
I shouldn't have asked.
We got the whiteboard. We can just start.
I won't get into those.
He was content until I asked the question. Now he's like, oh, damn.
I won't get into that, but it's definitely.
The takeaway is you're always thinking, always looking the future, visionary for more stuff. So that's exciting.
Yeah.
It's an organic product.
I guess one I could touch on is just the way that we handle photos now. That's a little different in the new editor. Yeah. Before, every photo we did some smart kind of grouping. If there were consecutive portrait photos, we would put those side by side. Now if there's consecutive photos or you add multiple photos at the same time, they're in a group. So they're still treated as individual photos, but they are grouped so that they can have some sort of dynamic layout depending on the device you're on or the width. Or if you're printing in a book, there's more control over the layout of the dynamic layout, the automated layout that we want to explore, just to make your photos look better, and rather than just having them all stacked up vertically.
Yeah.
And this first version mostly mirrors what we were doing previously. We will be introducing ways to break those up, reorder them, move photos from one group to another group.
Cool.
It's built with that in mind. We have all the capabilities there. We just haven't put the whole UI on it yet.
Okay.
So that's coming.
That's good information.
Great. Thank you.
That has come up on the Facebook group community page. So
yeah,
that'll be good information. TBD. Yeah. Stay tuned. Coming soon. Anything else?
I think we're good.
Oh my gosh,
a lot of good info.
What a great episode! Thank you, Paul, for joining us and talking about version 3. Go onto the community page and
just a reminder there, right? Facebook,
discuss what's going on.
Thank you for all those that are contributing, making a part of it, sharing your stories.
Yep. If you do need help, though, you can always get to support by going to dayoneapp.com/contact. There's a couple of different ways to contact us. If you have feature requests, you can go to our help guides and search feature requests and just submit one there. And there's also those help guides that we've started to update for version 3, where you can get information about dark mode, about audio, and more information about our editor will be coming soon. We're planning on a more thorough help guide for what you can do in our new editor. So check those out. And if you want to contact us here at the podcast, any feedback or things you'd like to discuss, or how has Day One improved or affected your life? How do you use it? We'd love to know. Contact us at podcast@dayoneapp.com.
Yeah.
Yes.
Thanks, everybody. We know there's a lot of podcasts out there, so thanks for giving us the listen.
Absolutely. And we'll talk to you in a couple of weeks.
Great. Goodbye, everyone.